Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Shawcross, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review of the Yamaha YPT-270. Although I haven't gotten any requests to review this particular instrument, I have gotten many requests to review various entry-level Yamahas of this type, and so when I was in my local music store, I saw this on the shelf, and I liked the price it was at, $139 US, and I was like, I'm gonna get it, and let's see what it's all about. So that is what today's video is going to be all about. I went into this completely blind. I don't really have any clue what the Y270 can do, although I do know that it has a lot of really cool lesson and functionality features. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be talking a lot about the extra features it has and not focusing so much about what it is like as an instrument. But of course, I will be playing it in today's video and I will give you my feedback on it. But the main focus of this instrument is actually not so much a piano to play and practice on, but more of a beginner's piano to learn how to play the piano. And what separates this from many of the other digital pianos I've reviewed lately that can do the same thing is that this has a lot of built-in lesson features. It can actually teach you the basics of playing the piano right within the instrument. Now, I think an instrument like this would have been a little bit more valuable 20 years ago before the internet really became as well rounded as it is today. Today you can Google how to play the piano and come up with like 80 million search results from various people about how to play the piano. So 20 years ago this would have been a lot more valuable, but even still today I really enjoy these built-in lesson features, and I think that for a young child this would be excellent, and even for a intermediate adult who just wants to start off with the piano, this would be one of your many options to choose from. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about the instrument itself before I dive into its in-depth features, and I'll move the camera around to give you guys a better close-up view of the interaction user interface here. But what I wanted to do first is talk about the build quality, and honestly it's pretty nice. First of all, it fits like perfectly on this table. I like that. That's unrelated but nice. But the build quality of it is actually pretty nice for a $139 US piano. Obviously it's plastic, but it feels sturdy and it doesn't really it's light. It's very, very light actually. It's insanely light. Although it doesn't actually feel like really cheap, it does kind of have some twist to it. But as a whole, it actually feels pretty decent. And the speakers are often something that digital pianos of this price point lack. I've reviewed a $139 digital piano, not by Yamaha, different brand, off-brand, that had the worst internal speakers I've ever heard. And this, I think, might have the best internal speakers of this price point that I have heard so far. They are very loud with very little distortion. They could easily fill like your average living room with sound, which is really great if you're learning how to play the piano, or your child is learning how to play the piano and you get together at the family gathering and little Timmy wants to play the piano. Everyone in the room will be able to hear it, which is awesome, with very little distortion. But what I'm going to do is demo the internal speakers here really quickly at about half volume, just to show you guys what they can sound like. So there you go. Honestly, not that bad at all. As far as what it comes with out of the box, there are only two different things it comes with. You got a power cable, and you get a music desk, and of course an owner's manual, which is very useful because it has many in-depth features that I will talk about in this video. So the music desk is pretty average. It's just a music desk, not really too much to talk about there, and it comes with a power supply. But it doesn't come with a pedal. And why is that? Well, if you think about it, it's only $139. And if you go online and you look at other digital pianos from other brands of this price point, the damper pedal you get with those is something like this. And although Yamaha makes a similar form factor pedal to this, this is one that came with an off-brand $139 digital piano, and it's absolutely garbage. It makes this horrible clicking noise every time you press it. It moves all over the floor, and if you saw the video of this, you'll probably know that it was driving me kind of nuts. So Yamaha has more pride than to include something that's this cheap with a $139 digital piano. So instead of including a nicer pedal that comes with a $600 instrument, Yamaha just includes no pedal at all, and you can optionally buy either the Yamaha pedal that has this form factor, or you can even splurge, and for about $28 to $30 US, you can get this bad boy. This is the Yamaha pedal you can buy. It's called the FC4A, and I didn't buy this special for this. This is the same pedal that comes with the Yamaha P515, which is a $1,500 digital piano. So for about 28 bucks, you can buy this really high quality pedal if you wanted to go with this Yamaha keyboard. It's got a nice solid underside. It's got these big metal feet that don't move at all on most surfaces you put it on. The outside case is very high quality, and the pedal itself has a great feel. So if you wanted to, you could splurge and buy this digital piano pedal to use with your YPT-270, and if you wanted to stick with Yamaha and keep buying more and more high-level Yamaha products, you would then have an extra pedal you could use with those instruments as well. So if you bought a P125, it would come with that square pedal I mentioned earlier. You can pop this in there and use this with it as well, which is really nice. So that's really cool. You can buy this and it works with this. So although you might think that it's negative that it doesn't come with a damper pedal, if you think about it, you can actually totally understand Yamaha's reasoning. They'd rather not include something that's garbage like this and simply not include something, because a beginning pianist who's using these lesson functionalities and learning how to play the piano and learning, you know, what C and D and E are, they're not really going to need a pedal anyway. They're not at that stage yet, so it really wouldn't matter that much at all. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to put these pedals away and get them off of my lap, and then I think it's about time to start diving into the menu and user interface of this thing. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to really quickly thank all of my patrons over on my Patreon account. The link for that is in the description of this video. All of you wonderful folks who have donated a little bit of money to me every month are really helping along the ability of mine to purchase these keyboards. So if you really want to see more fun digital piano reviews like this, you can definitely think about joining that Patreon account. And of course, the more people who are on there, the more interesting and more expensive digital pianos I'll be able to buy in the future. So that's definitely going to be really cool. I'm so thankful and I'm so happy that all of you guys are enjoying my channel enough to go join that Patreon account. So if you want to, go ahead and do that. And if you do that, thank you very much. Let's dive into this thing now. Let's check it out. So here's a closer look at the user interface and the keyboard itself, the Yamaha YPT-270. So this is more than just a digital piano. This is not just an instrument that you can play music on and that's all it does. This has a lot of different learning features and lesson functionalities that would be very useful for a beginning piano student. For a more advanced piano student, it may or may not help, although there is one particular function that is actually very helpful for, I think, people of all levels, or at least most levels. But especially for the beginning pianist, there are certain elements of this that are actually really great. And one of those is the song functionality. So a lot of different digital pianos will have demo songs you can click on and play and listen to. But the ones in this are actually a completely, it does have a different demo function, but these songs are an integral part of the YPT-270. So these songs are essentially music that you can play along with, and the piano will teach you how to play the melody line of the music. Now, I read on Yamaha's website or in the manual somewhere that you can actually get the scores for all of these songs online somewhere, which is kind of cool. And I don't know if it'll just show the score for the right hand or if it'll show the harmony that the arranger does in the background. If so, that's really cool. But what we're focusing on is what the keyboard itself does. So we're just going to start off with the default song here, the first one. And I'm just going to show you what it does. So for starters, you can simply listen to the song by hitting the start-stop button here. And it will play some demo stuff. Then the melody will kick in, right there, and it'll show on the display what notes are being played. So as you can hear, it's got this delightful backing track with a very pretty melody, and so for a beginning musician, that would be really awesome. As you go through the songs, it almost seems like they get a little tiny bit harder as you go along. I haven't looked at all of them, but that's what it appears to be. So this is one of the easier ones in the thing, but that's not the only thing you can do with it. So there's also the lesson section over here. So the first step is basically the step I've already done, is the listen and learn, where you listen to the backing track, you watch it go, and you can play along with it if you want to. But that's basically the listen and the learning step. You listen to it, you digest the music, you watch the melody line, and you see what exactly is going on. So I'm just going to hit that and let it do its thing for a little bit. And as you can see, it basically does the same thing that we already saw. So there you go. It shows the melody. And you can play along with it if you want to. You don't have to. It's really just the listening and learning stage. So that's the first stage to the lesson part. The second stage is the timing, and this is where things get interesting. So when you hit the timing button, what happens is it'll start off the same way, but instead of just allowing you to play whatever you want on the keyboard, it will actually lock you into only the correct notes, and all you're focusing on is the timing. So for more advanced pieces, that would actually be very helpful if you can just watch the screen and see what the notes are being played. If you can't keep up with that, you can just play any key in the right timing, and it will just keep moving along. So that's pretty cool. So I'll do a little bit of both here. I'll play some intentional wrong notes, and I'll also play some of the right notes just to show you what is happening here. So this is timing mode. So it does. So it's all over again. Wait for a minute. There it is. So as you can see, I can play wrong notes. So that's timing mode, and then at the end of timing mode, it'll fill up this progress bar, and then it will give you a little bit of it'll give you a grade. So that was an excellent grade. There's different levels. It's going to do it again. But there's different levels to grade. I think the lowest grade is simply an okay, and then it's good, very good, and then excellent. So it'll give you a basic grade according to how well you did. So if I were to do it again, which I'm not going to, but if I were to do it again and just completely mess up the timing, I'm sure it would give me a lower grade than the excellent. But the timing mode is only for timing. You can see I was playing notes that weren't actually in the piece, and all it was concerned about is just the correct timing. Now, the waiting mode is perhaps my favorite mode of them all, because what happens here is it is expecting you to play the right notes, and it will wait for you to do the right timing, and this is actually really cool. So we're going to run through this piece one more time, and what you'll see here is as I adjust my speed, it will actually adjust with me. So if I'm having, let's pretend that I'm having a hard time, and it takes me a while to figure out what the next note is. If I play the wrong note, it won't continue. It'll wait for me to find the right note, and then once I find the right note, it will continue on. So what happens here is if you're having trouble finding the right notes, it will wait for you and actually eventually end up slowing down the music to fit with the correct pace, which I think is really cool. And then if you're doing it better, you can hit the notes faster, and it will eventually increase the tempo as well. So it's a really, really well done dynamic tempo system that I think is really, really awesome. For the simpler songs, it's not quite necessary. For some of the more advanced ones in the list here, it's very, very useful. So let's do this again in waiting mode. So we'll roll through the intro, and then what will happen here is it'll show the note that it wants me to start on. It'll wait for me to play it. So obviously those tempo changes were me intentionally changing the tempo. We'll see what grade it gives me here. An excellent grade. Okay, awesome. So you can actually intentionally change the tempo and have it go faster if you're comfortable, or have it go slower if you're not as comfortable, and that is actually really, really well done. Increasing the tempo gets a little wonky when you first start to change. The notes kind of blend against each other, but once it figures out what tempo it wants, it locks it in, and you are good to go. So it's a really, really well done system, and I really, really like it. When I first started messing around with it, I was confused as to why the tempo was changing, but then I realized it was because I was messing around with it and just seeing what it could do, and I was waiting for the note and stuff, and the longer you wait for the note, it'll actually slow down to give the piece a more comfortable speed for you, which is so well done, and I really, really like that aspect of it. So you could go through and do more of the songs here. There's a whole bunch of songs. I don't actually even know how many there are, but there's quite a few. There's well over 100, and there's also user songs as well. So there's quite a few different songs you can go through and you can play around with, which is really, really wonderful. So they all do the same thing. They all have the listen and learn, the timing, and the waiting mode for all of these songs, which is really, really great. So in a time like now, when it's difficult to get a hold of a real human pianist and have in-person lessons, for a beginning pianist, this would be a good alternative, at least for beginning. This is not going to replace a human instructor by any means, but it definitely will be a good substitute teacher for when you're not able to access a real pianist teacher. There's also the style mode, which is also a lot of fun too. So the style mode kind of takes what the song mode does and kind of gives you way more freedom to do whatever you want. So instead of locking you into a particular piece, the style mode actually allows you to not only play a rhythm, but also to have an accompaniment with that rhythm, so you can control the accompaniment, control what chords play, and you can also play any melody you want with it. So this is a lot like the normal accompaniment you'll see in many other digital pianos, but it's still a lot of fun to play around with. So you can either just have the rhythm going by itself, with different fills and intros and endings and stuff like that, or you can have the accompaniment going as well. So the accompaniment will allow you to play a single note in the left hand, and then it will turn that into a chord. There's two different modes for this. There's a mode that you can access via the function button here, and you just scroll through here to find where is it? Somewhere in here. Play mode, auto off, battery, transpose, tuning, split point, volume. It's one of these. Style, volume, fingering type. So fingering type is what we need. So if you put it on smart chord, that's what it's at right now. So every note will be from a major scale. But however, if you put it on multi, that means you can play any chord you want to. So you can play triads, you can play seventh chords, you can play weird stuff in a multi mode. But I'm just going to put it in the smart chord setting just to be in the key of C major. And that's what we're going to do, but there's different modes to that. So essentially what you can do is just have fun, and it's actually really cool. So that's the style mode. It's a lot of fun, and there's a whole bunch of different styles as well. You can scroll through here and change a different style. Let's do 60s 8-beat. See what this is. See the accompaniment. So you can have a lot of fun with these styles and with these songs and all this sorts of stuff. So that is also a good educational tool because once you know how to play chords, you can put it in multi-mode and practice doing chord progressions with the fun backing track, or before you really learn how chords work, if you just know what 1, 4, 5 is, you can play C, F, and G like I was doing and do some simple chord progressions, do some minor chords, and then also just practice playing different scales over those chords, which is basically what I was doing. So you can do some really fun things with this YPT-270 that I think for a beginning piano student would be very, very great for learning how to do improv, for learning how to learn music. So the songs would be, I think, more for a beginning pianist, and then the styles would be more for a more advanced piano student who knows how chords work, who knows how harmony works, knows how functional harmony works, and then is able to kind of use all of those tools together to create some random improv music, or perhaps play a tune you already know to a rhythm, which is pretty fun. So you can turn off the accompaniment mode. I'm going to hit the portable grand button right here, which just resets everything. So I'm going to just play a style here without the, let's go back to the default one here. I'm just going to play a style without the rhythm, with the rhythm, without the accompaniment, and just play a piece of music that I think might fit kind of well, might be kind of fun. Let's do it. So you can use the rhythms there as a metronome. It does also have a built-in metronome, which is nice for practicing, or you can have a little more fun when practicing, and instead of practicing your classical music to a boring metronome, you can practice them to a fun beat, which is what I was doing there. So you can have a lot of fun with the YPT-270. Now, how does it perform as a musical instrument and not just as a teaching tool? There's one more teaching tool I'll get to in a bit here, but I also wanted to talk about how good it is as a musical instrument, because that's usually what I focus on in my reviews. I just wanted to touch on some of the learning features and the extra stuff that this has, because this is honestly more than just your normal average digital piano. It has extra features too. But as a digital piano, it is quite decent. As you heard earlier, the internal speakers are more than adequate. They would certainly fill your living room with sound and music, and then the tones and the action are also quite respectable. Unfortunately, as you can probably hear, there is no touch sensitivity. But that's what the more expensive versions of this sort of instrument are for, I suppose. But however, the tones that are included are actually all pretty decent. None of them are going to be phenomenal, but I haven't found any in here that I would consider to be terrible either. It's typical Yamaha. It's very decent. So if we take a look here, we've got electric piano sounds. You've got a harpsichord sound there, you've got clavinet. Besides no touch sensitivity, the only real negative thing I would have to say about this instrument is that it's very easy to accidentally trigger the keys. Since there is no touch sensitivity, the notes trigger very early and very easily, so it is quite easy to accidentally bump a key and have there be wrong extra notes. But it's a beginning level instrument, so I'm not really going to criticize it too much, and its focus isn't, here's a performance piano. Its main focus is, here's a teaching tool, so that's really why I'm not really paying that much attention to its somewhat minor flaws. So you have a wide variety of different sounds. You got synth sounds, you've got normal musical instruments, you've got some ethnic stuff, you've got all sorts of different types of pianos. And in these last two categories, you have a wide variety of different sounds. You've got some repeated sounds from before, you've got all sorts of stuff. So I think touch sensitivity really would have made this instrument come alive, especially with certain sounds like, for example, this one here, which is named Dream. It's meant to have a dreamy kind of a sound, but without touch sensitivity, it really doesn't. The other small flaw is that selecting the sounds, you can't go back and forth. You can only go one way around through these categories. If you pass up something you want, you have to go all the way back around through to get back to it. So if I want sound 8, and oops, I went past sound 8, I've got to go all the way back around to get to sound 8. There we go. And that's not a big issue with the first few, but with some of these other ones that have like over 100 sounds in each category, if I want 157 and I go right past it, I've got to like do a whole bunch of sounds to get back around to 157. I'm up to 190, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250. So I feel like just having, an up and down pair of buttons for each of these might have been a better deal. But it's not that expensive of a piano, and if you leave the category and come back to the category, you get reset to the first sound. So that is kind of a little bit of a workaround as well. So as far as the musical instrument, it is quite adequate, especially for the beginning pianist who this is aimed at. So you can do a lot of different things with it. You've got those cool teaching tools, and you've got a lot of different sounds to have fun with. All kinds of crazy sounds in here. And one of my favorites is the special effects kit here. You might see all of these funny little icons all along the keys. These are all special effects sounds, which of course are really just, goofy noises, like sheep and stuff, but you can still have some fun with it. Obviously for a beginning pianist, a lot of beginning pianists are young children, so if you got a 9-year-old this, a lot of the time they would have fun. Some of these sounds are recycled from the old DGX series. I forget what model mine was, like a DGX 440 or something. I had it when I was I think I got it when I was 9. It had a lot of these same sounds in it, and let me tell you, I spent a lot of time just messing around with the random sound effects in that instrument back when I was 9 or 10. So obviously a kid today would have a lot of fun with these, but even though the sounds are cheesy, you can actually still create some kind of fun, interesting environmental sounds. Here's like a nighttime rainstorm. So you can have some fun. You got this water sound, you got the rain sound, and then you've got the owl, the frog, and the cricket. So you can just have some fun with that. So that's really cool. To exit out of the SFX kit, you can't actually toggle the button back and forth, which is kind of weird. You got to hit the portable grand button to reset everything and get back to the beginning. So those are some of the learning features of the YPT-270, but there's a couple more I wanted to show you, so let's dive into those. Another really interesting learning functionality of the YPT-270 is the quiz, which I think is not only helpful for a beginning pianist, but honestly a pianist of most any age. If you have perfect pitch, this quiz will be ridiculously easy, but for anyone who doesn't have perfect pitch, this will be a really, really great way to learn and to begin to understand what notes sound like on their own. It's basically a perfect pitch quiz. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but what it does is it starts off by giving you single notes, and then a set of 3 notes, and then a triad, and you have to play that triad back. So what I'm just going to do is do like the first 3 notes so you get an idea of how it works. So let's try out the quiz functionality. So there you go, you have it. It starts out with single notes, and then it'll do random intervals. So it started out with middle C, and then it went up to the B, then it went to the F, G, and G sharp. That's what I remember it doing. And then it starts off with playing 3 notes at once. Doing the 3 notes thing at once is kind of tricky. If you don't start off with the first note, then you have to play 2 more notes. It'll tell you it's wrong, and then you have to start all over again. So it's a little bit weird, and it's not quite perfectly executed. But the idea of that is really, really excellent. You can go into the settings and change the difficulty level of it as well. So if it's too advanced for you, you can go back and make it a little bit easier for you as well. But just the idea of having a perfect pitch tester in an instrument, I think, is really, really cool. I feel like perhaps if they went a little bit more in-depth with that and had like perhaps a whole menu dedicated to it, so you could select single note testing or triad testing or something like that, instead of just having it all lumped into one, that would have been really cool. The final learning thing I think is kind of interesting, again, not executed quite perfectly in my opinion, but still very cool, is the chord dictionary. If you hold this button down, it will enter dictionary mode, and then the keyboard will turn into something a little bit different. You'll see, once again here, this says root, and this says chord type, and then this is labeled blank. So the dictionary, essentially what happens is, above this note, you choose any note that you want to be your root. Let's do F. So now it says F is a root. And then within this section here, it says chord type. And above each little random animal or door, you have a chord symbol. You've got major, you've got add 9, you've got 6, minor, major 7, minor. I'm not going to run through all of them. You get the point. So you select one of these. Let's do major 7. Now it says F7 here. Actually, that was dominant 7. So then you choose dominant 7, and then it will show you on the keyboard how to play it. So it'll show an F, an A, a C, and an E flat all lined up. And then below this part is where you actually play the chord. So you play the chord, and that chime means, hey, you got it right. That's the right chord. That's how to play an F dominant 7 chord. Let's try minor 7. Obviously, we just move the A down to an A flat to have that nice flat 3 to get the minor 7 chord. And it'll play that chime saying, yes, that is the correct chord. We can change the root if we want to try an E minor 7 chord. Perfect. Let's do an A minor 7. Awesome. Let's do a minor 6 now. See how that works, right? So you've got A, you've got C, you've got E, and then you have an F sharp. Awesome. Let's do D minor 6. You've got D, you've got F, you've got A, and you've got B. So that's a really cool way if you're working on a piece of music and perhaps it's jazz and you see, oh, it's a dominant 7 flat 13. How do I do that? Well, maybe it's E. So you hit the E, you hit the dominant 7 flat 13, and then it will show you how to actually play that. So you've got the E, you've got the G sharp, and you've got B, C, and D all next to each other. Perfect. There you go. That's one voicing for it. It's in root position. I don't know if you can change the inversion type. That would be cool. And the other small thing that I think is a little bit strange is that it's in a strings sound. Maybe I can change that, but it would be cool if it was in a piano sound by default, so you can hear the individual notes better, because I feel like it all just kind of blends a little bit too well together. Here's E major 7. But regardless, that's a really cool functionality, and I do like that as a whole. So that has been my review of the Yamaha YPT-270, which is a very simple, but also at the same time very in-depth digital piano with a lot of really great learning features for a beginning pianist. I think out of all of the digital pianos I've reviewed so far, this would be definitely a top contender for an instrument for a beginning piano student who's never played the piano before. You've got all these built-in learning functions, the lessons, you've got the songs, you've got the styles, and you've got 400 fun voices to play with too, as well as fun sound effects. You know, so you've got all kinds of cool stuff to play with, and it's a really, really nice instrument. The build quality is actually decent, it looks cool, and as a whole, for a beginning pianist, I think it would be great. Obviously, I don't really need to say this, it has its limitations. You can squeeze out some classical music, but there's no touch sensitivity, so that kind of very dramatically decreases the quality of that sound. But for a beginning pianist, for an intermediate pianist, I think this definitely would serve them well for the first year or so, and I think it would be a great entry into the world of the digital piano. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, you might want to go check out my YouTube channel. I have lots of cool videos of digital pianos, acoustic pianos, and all kinds of other interesting stuff that's somewhere in between. So if any of that sounds cool, you might want to think about subscribing to the channel, and if you do that, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.